Hey, what's going on, Matrix? It's White Dragon, 1987. What's going on, guys? Your CEO. Sorry, it's been a while that I hadn't got out a podcast for a minute. You guys been pretty busy. I changed my off days. We had a lot going on in the league. We got a lot of new turnover going on, a lot of new teams. But wanted to get something out real quick tonight. I'll get something out really good next Monday. We'll have the full cast out Monday. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. I want to go ahead and welcome some new guys to the league. We got a new Lions user. That's Uncle Surge 81. He just joined recently. We got King Seashire 21 with the Browns. We got Cal Rob DeRaba with the Cowboys. And then we have Dino 3 with the Saints. We have the 13156 taking over the Chiefs. And then with the Broncos, we have official KJ Ross. And with the Titans, we have the unbeatable Zoe. And that looks like all of the new users. So you guys, welcome to the league. This is our weekly podcast, Matrix Unplugged, weekly, bi-weekly, something like that. But glad to have you guys here. I think we've got one more team to fill, just the Steelers, and we should get that filled pretty soon. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. This week we're going to focus on just some stats, some weekly awards, and then who's leading their division currently. So as far as stats, let's jump right into the passing game. So as usual, Lamar Jackson, he's leading most of the passing categories. Your top five guys in passing yards, you got Lamar Jackson at 1579. You got Dwayne Haskins Jr. right behind him at 1479. Dak Prescott with 1,074 yards, and then Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr rounding out the top five. One thing that sticks out right here to me is although Dwayne Haskins is keeping up with Lamar Jackson, he's been really inefficient. He's got 12 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but a 55% pass completion rating, so he's throwing the ball up, airing it out, but doesn't look like he's too efficient. Lamar Jackson has been extremely efficient this year with 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, they've also been pretty efficient with 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And what's really odd is we have 3 guys in that top 5 there that have 70% pass completion. So efficiency looks like it's going to be the key this year early on, not so much that volume and trying to break records and everything. So the leaders in the touchdown category for passing yards, obviously Jackson at number 1 with 13. Then you got Dwayne Haskins with 12, tied with Aaron Rodgers with 12. And then you got Phillip Rivers at 11, and then Derek Carr with 10. Moving on to the run game. So leading the league in rushing, we have Rashad Penny with the Seahawks right now at 696 yards, followed by Joe Mixon with 580, Ezekiel Elliott with 518, Darius the Juice Geis with 420, and then Jarrett McKinnon with 409. Leading the league in rushing touchdowns is Rashad Penny, so he's leading the league in yards and in rushing touchdowns. He's tied with Joe Mixon, 10 touchdowns. Then you've got Ezekiel Elliott with 6 rushing touchdowns. And then we have a ton of guys that are tied there with 4 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Miller, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley. So looks like we've got a pretty even run battle going on, although Penny and Mixon are kind of above the rest. Moving on to the receiving game, what really sticks out to me early on is we have 2 out of the 5 top players with overall receptions are tight ends. So very odd this year early on. We didn't have a lot of tight end activity last year. Eric Ebron's leading the league with 27 receptions, followed by Christian Kirk, who's tied with him with 27. David Njoku, another tight end, 23 catches. Then we have Dede Westbrook with 22, and then we've got Marquise Hollywood Brown and OBJ rounding out really the top 5, but Brown and Beckham are tied there for that 5th spot with 21 catches. With yards, it's none other than the famous Hollywood Marquise Brown, 586 yards receiving. Same thing that we had going on last year. Big plays, down the field, stretching it out, airing it out. What sticks out, though, Stephon Diggs. So it looks like G-Nice has got something going there with the Vikings. Got 520 receiving yards with Stephon Diggs, and then Terry McLaurin with 474. Julio Jones with 443. Rounding out the top 5 is Paul Richardson Jr. with 436. As far as receiving touchdowns, Brandon Cooks has 6 receiving touchdowns to go with his 285 yards. Dede Westbrook with 6, and then Miles Boykin with 6. So we've got a 3-way tie for first, and then we have 6, 7 guys tied with 5 touchdowns. You got Stephon Diggs, Julio Jones, Paul Richardson Jr., Yates. So looks like people are spreading the wealth around this year. Looks like the wide receiver of the year awards are pretty much up for grabs. So I like seeing that. I like seeing parity in the league. Let's move on to defense. So leading the league in tackles, we have Telvin Smith with the Jacksonville Jaguars, 32 tackles. Alexander with 32 tackles, tied for leading the league. And then we've got a bunch of guys tied with 31 tackles. Chris Harris Jr., Trey Edmonds, Cole, Keanu Neal, D. Payne. Then with sacks, we've got Jermaine Grace leading the league with 10.5 sacks. Brian Burns, 9.5 sacks. Shaquem Griffin with 7 sacks. And then we have White with 6.5. DeMarcus Lawrence with 6. So I like this. Looks like we've kind of slowed down the blitzing a little bit this year. I remember last year early on, there were some guys that had some stupid sack numbers. So a quarter of the way through the season, not too crazy. Looks like it's pretty even. We've got some guys that are learning how to blitz. Looks like it's spread out a little bit. So good to see that. People are getting pressure, but also we're getting a little bit better at slowing it down. Leading the league in interceptions is going to be Kevin King. He's got 5 interceptions, and then we have a multiple-way tie with second place. We've got KZ, Thompson, Ricardo Allen, Eddie Jackson, Ward, Nicholson, all tied with 4 interceptions in the league. Now let's go ahead and move on to weekly awards. So we didn't really touch on weekly awards too much last year. I'm going to try to get into that this year. In week 1, with the NFC and the offensive side, you had Brandon Cooks. He had 4 catches, 84 yards, 21-yard reception average, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So it was pretty much every time he caught the ball that week, it was a touchdown. On the defensive side, you have King, which we touched on earlier. He had 3 tackles in week 1, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 defensive touchdown. Over on the AFC side of the ball in week 1, you had Derek Carr. He was 16 of 20, 301 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, only 1 pick. And then we had, on the defensive side for the AFC, Jermaine Grace. He had 10 tackles and 4 sacks. So he was definitely putting pressure on the quarterback. And that's what the Ravens does best. In week 2, Stephon Diggs, with the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, had 8 catches, 236 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. He had a carry, didn't go anywhere with it. And then on the NFC defensive side, you had Thompson with 2 tackles and 3 picks. I'm guessing those are user picks. I know that Mad Cow's got a pretty good user game going on, so nice little 3-pick game. Over on the AFC side for week 2, Joe Mixon. This is one of our new users, Brian. He's taken over the Bengals. And you know what? I forgot to give him a shout-out earlier, but that's going to be Mr. Brian Inc. He's played with us before. Glad to have him back. 16 carries, 229 yards. Rushing, he averaged 14 yards a carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. And then on the defensive side, he also had Jesse Bates with 7 tackles, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. Let me tell you guys right now, he is going to take these Bengals and he is going to turn them into something. So don't think you're going to walk all over the Bengals anymore. Glad to see that division's got some competition now. Moving on to week 3. On the NFC side of the ball for offense, Dwayne Haskins Jr., 18 of 25, 371 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. On the defensive side in week 3 for the NFC, you had Eddie Jackson. He had 9 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 defensive touchdown. Over on the AFC side, Action Jackson, Lamar Jackson, 24 of 29. Look at that efficiency, 24 of 29. 327 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and he had 5 carries for 18 yards. Over on the defensive side, you had Jabal Sheard. He had 7 tackles and 3 sacks. So that was a good free agency acquisition made by one of our commissioners there. Danny, he's our AFC commissioner. And then in week 4, on the NFC side, you had Sam Darnold. He was 22 of 33 for 281 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 5 carries for 19 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, you had McDougal with 5 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Over on the AFC side again, a familiar face, Lamar Action Jackson. You guys have got to stop this guy. 21 of 27, 500 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns. He did take 7 sacks, so not good to see that happen. Eventually he's going to get rung and get taken out of the game, but actually that's what I want to see. I think you all guys all want to see Jackson out of the game at this point, so keep blitzing him, try to take him out. And he had 1 carry for 3 rushing yards. Not much on the ground that week. On the defensive side of the ball for the AFC, HaHa Clinton Dix, who recently transferred out to the Texans. He had 7 tackles, 1 interception for a touchdown. So let's go ahead and move on into scouting. So scouting the players coming out of college early on, these are your top 5 prospects. So the number 1 prospect right here is Kramer. Number 2 is Angel Vasquez. Number 3 is Marion Fitzgerald. Number 4, Neil Allen. Number 5, Casey Cornelius. So the number 1 overall prospect, Brian Kramer, he's a quarterback coming out of Washington. He's a strong arm quarterback. He's also a big guy, 6'5", 231, very young, 22 years old. He's already got the A+ throw power. He's got A- throw accuracy for short, A- mid throw accuracy. He looks like he is going to be ridiculous. I wouldn't be shocked if this guy came out of the draft superstar or superstar X Factor. So definitely going to be a top 5 pick. If you need a quarterback, look at Brian Kramer. The number 2 rated prospect coming out of college right now is Angel Vasquez, coming out of UCF. He's a power rusher. He's 6'4", 258, really, really young, 21 years old. His top skills, A- in tackle. He's got really good pursuit with B+, and he's got pretty good play recognition with a B. He's also going to be a top 10 pick. So if you guys need some pass rush, take a look at him, Angel Vasquez. Number 3. This is kind of odd here. So back-to-back years, we've had a top 10 wide receiver projected to come out of San Diego State. Last year we had Kadeem Brown come out. He was a deep threat as well. Pretty similar. He was also 6'2", right around 190 something. So Marion Fitzgerald looked like he's going to be following the footsteps of Kadeem Brown. So apparently San Diego State, they're slinging it out there. They're moving the ball down the field. He's a deep threat. He's got B+ catching traffic, B+ catching, B+ medium route running. He's also going to be a top 10 pick. Moving on to the number 4 prospect is Neil Allen, another quarterback. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, 23 years old, out of Michigan State. He's a little bit different than our earlier quarterback. This guy is going to be a scrambler. However, he still has that A+ throw power. He's got A throw accuracy short, and he has A- throwing on the run. So looks like we've got a really nice crop of quarterbacks coming out early on. And speaking of quarterbacks, rounding out the top 5 prospects already, Casey Cornelius. He's 6'4", 229 pounds, 22 years old, coming out of South Carolina, and he's a field general type quarterback. A+ throw power, A throw accuracy short, B+ throw on the run. So right off the bat, 3 out of 5 of the top 5 prospects coming out of college going to be quarterbacks. I know a lot of you guys out there are hurting for quarterbacks. If you need one, go ahead and tank. Make some trades for some first-round picks. Go get your quarterback this year. That's pretty much it this week, you guys. I know usually we have a better show. We've got Peyton on board and usually Sherrod, but just going to be me this week. It's pretty late. Sorry for that. We will have our Matrix Unplugs probably on Monday going forward. So next week's show will be a lot better. For you new guys, you can follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter. We've got an email account, matrixmaddenleague@gmail.com. Also, I'll do a little quick rundown of the rules. So for any of you new guys, play close attention. If you have any disconnects or replays, you've got to provide a screenshot or a video clip of the disconnection screen to your conference commissioner. So I'm the CEO, but if you're AFC or NFC, you report all issues and discrepancies to your conference commissioner. So if you're AFC, that's going to be the Raiders. That's Danny Boy RR. That's Danny. If you're NFC, that's going to be B More to T-Town. He's out there with the Eagles, so you're going to report any NFC issues to the Eagles. You can see them in the chat. You can @ them. They're really responsive, so make sure always go to your conference commissioner first. Don't go to myself or to the Giants. We did add a new commissioner this year. He's going to be one of our alternate commissioners. That's Mad Cow. He has the Giants, so he'll be helping us out. Moving on, you can only replay the game after a commissioner gives you approval. So don't keep replaying these games 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. If you hurt your star quarterback and you pull the plug and you keep replaying it, we're going to catch you guys eventually. So injuries are part of the game. Take them. If you have a disconnect, take a picture, send it in to your commissioner, and they'll give you approval to play again as long as it's not something crazy. If you guys do have to replay, then you have to take the score and the quarter from the previous game into account unless both parties agree otherwise. So if you're winning 40-10 and somebody magically has a disconnection at halftime and they're coming at you saying, oh, we're going to start back over, same score, it doesn't work like that. You guys would just play a new game. You would play to halftime, and you would have that 30-point lead because you were up 40-10. So make sure you keep that into account, score and quarter from the previous game. If you guys have 5 or more disconnects in one season for any reason, you're probably going to be removed from the league because you either have shitty internet, you're cheating, or you're pulling the plug, something's going on. So If you guys are having a lot of disconnects, figure your shit out, get it fixed. I don't work for AT&T. Don't ask me how to do it. I don't work for Sony. All right, I work for an airline, so if you guys have to call somebody, figure that shit out. But make sure your internet's running good. Don't pull the plug. Don't cheat. The most important thing that I can say about the disconnects and replays, you cannot quit the game because you're losing. You have to finish the game. This is franchise, CFM. This isn't a pickup game. This ain't the little mutt garbage with the little 5-year-olds and shit like that. This is CFM, all right? We play for stats, we play for awards, we play for XP, all that good stuff. Take your loss like a man. If you want to reach out to your opponent and say, hey, look, you're clearly better than me. You're beating me. Can we just chew the clock, or can you run the ball? Let's go ahead and get out of here. That's cool. But only if the other person agrees to it, all right? So let's move on to some more rules we have. Gameplay rules, we don't really have that many. We do not have a fourth down rule.
We don't have a fourth down rule.
Just wanted to get that out of the way. We get that question asked 5 to 10 times a season. If you go for it on fourth, you're doing so at your discretion. The rules that we do have, though, you have to rush 3 players at all times. You can't put 9, 10, 11 guys in the coverage. So pretty much, if you're running a 3-4, it's automatically going to rush 3 guys. You've got your 3 down linemen blitzing. If you're running a 4-3, your down linemen, you've got 4 of them, they're going to blitz. You can get creative. You can, if you're running a 3-4, you can put one of those guys in the coverage, but you have to blitz at running back or a corner. So always at least send 3 people. You can't use the chew clock feature in situations that aren't reasonable. If it's first quarter and the game just started and you're using the chew clock feature to prevent someone else from getting the ball, that's going to be an issue. You cannot do that. You're violating the game. You're violating the rules. Don't use chew clock feature in that situation. What's the situation where it would be justified? If you're winning and there's 3, 4, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you're trying to protect that lead, you know what? Chew clock. That makes sense. I understand it. Moving on, no more than 2 consecutive no huddles unless you're in the final 2 minutes of a half. So you can't make your entire offense no huddle. You can run it back to back one time, then you're going to have to stop, call your play, and then you can go right back to it. But only 2 times consecutively calling the no huddle unless you're in the final 2 minutes of the first half or second half. If your opponent violates any gameplay rules during your game, pause the game, DM him, so direct message that opponent, and let them know, hey, you violated the 3-player rush rule or the chew clock rule or the consecutive no huddle rule, punt me the ball. If they refuse to do it, then get with the commissioner. You don't got to come to us and tell us, hey, they did this, blah, blah, blah. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you request a punt? Again, another gameplay rule, no quitting your games. Take your loss and finish the game. Moving on. For trades, I'm going to have to update the screen. These were our trade rules when we initially opened up the league, but everything's pretty similar for now, though. All trades must be approved by the trade committee before you send them in the game. We don't want to hear oops. We don't want to hear oh my bad. Do not send a trade in the Madden game until you get it approved by the trade committee. So go ahead and reach out to your opponent, DM the person, text them, send them an email, call them up, take them on a date. I don't give a shit, but you're going to have to go ahead and work out that trade. Work out your trade. Then, after it gets approved, you can go ahead and send it in the game so they can accept it. Well, who are the trade committee members? If you'll look in the group chat, there's going to be people that have a big capital T in parentheses in front of their name. That means they're on the trade committee. Your trade committee members, you have the Colts, who's DNL42. You have the Panthers, that's Paper Trail. And then you have Mad Cow Disease. He's also one of our commissioners. He's the Giants. So the Giants, the Panthers, and the Colts. Your first alternate is the Cardinals, and then your second alternate is going to be the Ravens. The trade committee has 24 hours to vote on a trade. If they don't give you a ruling or they don't vote on the trade within 24 hours of when it's posted, the trade goes through by default. So don't keep hitting the person up and asking them, hey, did my trade go through? Hey, what happened? What happened? You might as well just sit back and relax, and if they don't do their job, your trade's going through regardless. So let them do their job. Submit your trade to the trade committee members. Make sure you send a screenshot, of the agreement that you guys both agreed. You can't just go out there and say, hey, blah, blah, blah said that they're going to send me Drew Brees and you didn't give them anything in return, really. Hang on one second, you guys. My bad. I'm sorry. So make sure you send in the screenshot where you guys both agreed on the trade and make it pretty easy for the trade committee to understand. If you just put everything all jumbled up in one big paragraph with like 50 words in there, there's going to be problems. So make sure you just put, hey, I'm sending Drew Brees. He's sending a third round pick. Boom. Easy breezy. So let's see here. Once the trade is approved, you cannot back out of the trade. We had this happen earlier on this year. Somebody had got a trade approved and they said they didn't want to send it. We don't roll like that. Once the trade is in the trade committee's hands and we approve it in the trade committee, you're now liable to make that trade. If you don't do it, one of two things is going to happen. We're going to revoke your trade privileges for a season, or we're going to kick you out of the league. Plain and simple, don't do it. If you don't want the trade, then don't agree to it and don't send it in. Disregard the no trades until week 3. And for new users, we kind of lightly enforce this, but new users have to play 2 full games before trading. If a trade is vetoed, this is a really key thing right here, you guys. If a trade is vetoed, the players involved in a trade may not sign with the other team for 2 weeks if they're cut. So you guys can't do the little backdoor player cut free agency things, all that garbage. If we veto Aaron Rodgers for a 5th round pick, and then we see where you cut Aaron Rodgers and the other guy got him immediately, we're going to kick you both out. So we're not playing with stuff like that. Play with some honor, with some integrity. Don't ruin the experience for everybody. Position changes. Nobody should ask us anything about position changes. It's been an entire season. If you're a new person, go to GroupMe, go to the calendar section, and I have it broken down every different type of rule, and you can click on the document and look at it from there. But players have to remain in their position group for the most part. So what do I mean by that? Well, the permitted position changes are offensive line to offensive line. You can move a left tackle to right tackle. You can move a right tackle to right guard. You can move a right guard to center, as long as they stay offensive line. Fullback and tight end are technically a position group. So you can move a fullback to tight end. You can move a tight end to fullback. Linebackers. Linebackers are interchangeable. You can move a left outside linebacker to middle linebacker to right outside linebacker. Do whatever you want to do. Defensive line. Defensive line are going to be your defensive ends, defensive tackle. You can move a defensive tackle to a defensive end to a defensive tackle. DBs. Defensive backs are corners, free safeties, strong safeties. You can interchange those positions however you want to. Kicker and punter can be switched back and forth as well. Do not attempt any of the following position changes for any reason. You guys saw what happened last year. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but we had a position change from a player that was unwarranted, and we had to levy down some pretty harsh fines. So quarterback to anything other than quarterback is not allowed. If you also look on this graphic, if you look at the permitted changes, they're in green. If you see the non-permitted, they are in red. That should tell you guys right now, oh, I'm doing something wrong. So quarterbacks have to stay quarterbacks. Running back, halfback, they have to stay as a running back. You can't put them at wide receiver. You can't put them at fullback. You can't put them at tight end. Wide receiver to anything other than wide receiver is not allowed. Offensive line cannot move to anything else besides offensive line. D-line has to stay D-line, and DBs have to stay DB. Now, this is just editing the player's actual position. If Madden will let you play a tight end at wide receiver in your depth chart, you're free to do so. So this in no way has any restrictions to your depth chart. You can do whatever you want to do in your depth chart. We're just talking about changing the player's actual positions. The last thing on here is a commissioner approved one-time change. So you can move linebacker to defensive end or defensive end to linebacker with approval from the commissioner. However, if you're moving a linebacker to defensive end, he can't have speed, acceleration, or agility that's higher than the best defensive end in the league. So, if you guys are trying to move this 93 speed linebacker to defensive end, there's no defensive end that has that speed. We're not going to allow that. But, guys like Terrell Suggs, things like that, we're going to allow. Guys like, Tack McKinley, just use your brain, you guys. It's common sense. But once you get your one-time change, he can't move anymore. So he's going to have to stay there for the duration of his career. That's pretty much it, you guys. We have a few more rules, but just look at the calendar section. look under there. You'll be able to find anything you need. Again, I'm your CEO, White Dragon. I've got the Jets. Your alternate is going to be the Giants. He's our alternate commissioner, Mad Cow Disease. And then your conference commissioners, AFC is going to be the Raiders, and the NFC is going to be the Eagles. Thank you guys for tuning in. I promise we'll have a much better show next week. I just had to get something out. Welcome again, all the new guys to the league. Matrix Unplugged. See you next week.